Welcome to Food Talk for Health, because you really are what you eat. Here is your host, Tonia King.
My guest today is Dr. Ken Redcross. Today we're talking about a variety of health issues, diabetes, TikTok trends, what's going on in our world of healthy living. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back with you.
Absolutely. Where do we begin?
Gosh, it depends on how much time do we have, everyone, right?
Let's talk a little bit about what the trends are these days with all the different ads we see on television about drugs that are the miracle cure for so many diseases, such as diabetes and more. What's your thought process on that?
So I'm here to tell you, everyone, I always bring positivity, but this time there are no miracles. It all kind of starts with us and with education as well. So it's interesting. I used to always deal with Dr. Google out there with his advice or her advice, but now it's TikTok doc. And so I think the big thing is a lot of docs are like, don't listen to anything you're hearing. What I'm coming in my direction is, let's understand where this trend is coming from and how can it pertain to us health-wise, and have a good discussion with your doctor about it.
So my problem sometimes is when you go to your doctor and you go for blood work and you find out that you are a type 2 diabetic, and the first thing that doctor does is prescribe metformin, immediately a drug. Why not talk about what's your diet? What's your lifestyle? Like, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong for thinking?
No, you're not.
That way?
I'm so glad you brought that up because, one of the things I always love to say, especially when I'm on air and we're having this discussion, is my whole goal is not to have to pull out my prescription pad. Now, to your point, metformin it's a great medication that can be supportive, but that's not where we should start. We should start, I always say, closer to the earth, which is going to be with nutrition and lifestyle changes. And sometimes I know, everyone, that's a little bit of what feels like the slow road, but this is the one that actually sticks and can keep so many millions of people off of medications if you can just change those two things, diet and exercise.
Let's talk about diet specifically. Are your recommendations to stay away from meat, to stay away from dairy, to talk about a whole foods plant-based diet? What do you think works?
Oh gosh, I love that question because so look, everyone, when I mention diet, I'm not talking about, the weight loss things. What we were talking about, this trend. There was a trend with a diabetic medication, everyone, called Ozempic. It's a medication that's been shown obviously to help with blood sugar, but the big thing is you get a lot of weight loss with it. Because of that, what's happened is a plant-based ingredient, now that you mentioned plant-based, called berberine, was kind of roped into this because berberine does some very special things. Berberine, which is plant-based, does some wonderful things to help support your blood sugar, to also help to support your cholesterol. There's a little bit of data. We still can't kind of bring it all in to say that it helps with weight loss yet, but we do know that it can help with the waist circumference and some of those indicators. But the point is that we're looking at something like berberine, which is plant-based, to make a big difference. But we don't want to tout it as nature's Ozempic because it's not there for weight loss. That's not where the major magic happens with berberine. So when I talk about how we should be eating, everyone, it's closer to the earth. We have already learned that a plant-based diet is probably healthier for us. I always ascribe to what I call 60-40-20, 60 grams of carbs, 40 grams of protein, and 20 grams of fat, healthy fat. And with that kind of balance, you can actually have a really good health and not necessarily have to worry about things such as your blood sugar levels.
It's interesting because once you start Googling, if you will, about ways to help in that department, you're inundated with emails and posts and everything that is trying to say, this is the best, this is the magic cure. And you talk about berberine. Now, berberine, is that originated from India, or where does that come from? Is it a berry, an herb, or what is it?
Oh, wow, that's a wonderful question. So berberine, everyone, comes from the bark. You may have heard some time ago about golden seal.
Sure.
Barberry. So that's where berberine comes. Look, it's one of those things. I always try to say, eat your vitamins if you can. It's hard to eat berberine because you're not going to be able to get enough bark in. But to your point, everyone's been inundated because we've learned. So to get back to the TikTok trend in this case, the thing is that it's not fully accurate, but I'm grateful because we're talking about berberine today, and we never would have talked about it besides the trend. Now, as far as being inundated, now Berberine's popping up all over the place. And that's why I'm here, because I know everyone's confused. Look, I ascribe to a company called Doctors Preferred. I'm an advisor, and it's special because the thing I liked about it is that it uses the research dose of 1,500 milligrams, everyone. So that's the research dose. So make sure you look for that whenever you're looking for your berberine. The other thing I should mention, the reason why I like Doctors Preferred as well, is because you will see a special seal, a GMP, which means good manufacturing practices. That you want to see on all your supplements because that means a company outside of Doctors Preferred has come in as a third party investigator and said, okay, it's pure. So what's in your supplement is true and it's the real deal, and it works. And then the other reason why in particular, and there's a lot of them on Amazon, but another reason why I kind of peeled back the layers and learned a little bit more about the Doctor's Preferred brand, because they have some other things that you may have heard for some time, such as cinnamon, chromium, banaba leaf, which is a leaf that's in East Asia. All of those have been shown to help support blood sugar. So I say all this, everyone, that when you come to your doctor with these supplements, please make sure you've researched them. Make sure that that seal is definitely on there because once again, that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you to make sure that you're taking something that not only works and that's effective, but that's also safe for you.
So people have actually seen results.
Oh, yes. It's funny that you mentioned results in this way because there's three things I always tell patients when you're going to see them. So in this case, if we're talking about berberine or any other supplement, I want to make sure that number one, you come armed with good questions so that you're not necessarily feeling blown off. The other thing is you want to make sure that there's no drug interactions with what you're already taking. And you also want to make sure that it's safe in the sense of do you have liver issues or kidney issues, things that your doctor needs to talk to you about as well. Once again, this is a partnership. So when we're talking about something, in this case, berberine for blood sugar support, and we're talking about type 2 diabetes or those who have insulin resistance or those who are overweight that can have some issues with the blood sugar. That's why, like I said, this craze is interesting because I've known about berberine for years, but a lot of people haven't. So it's exciting to be able to share some news that can to support some other people out there.
So what's the difference between insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity?
They're very similar, everyone. The point is that with type 2 diabetes, the problem isn't an insulin problem. There's more than enough insulin circulating. It's just that your body doesn't really wake up to utilize that insulin. And so that's why you'll hear terms such as resistance or insensitivity. But the point is that we know some things can make that better. We mentioned one at the top of our segment, exercise. When you're moving your body and you're exercising, the muscles in and of themselves will allow the sugar to run more efficiently out of our bloodstream into our muscles to use it for energy and for storage. And that's why it's important to have this nice interplay with making sure there's some lifestyle changes and maybe something closer to the earth like berberine that we're talking about today, for an example, or as an example, I should say rather.
So would that be the case then when folks are testing their blood sugar and the numbers can vary so much after you're sleeping for so many hours, your metabolism it's down, you're not exercising. So then your numbers would be higher. Is that correct?
Well, they can be. So the numbers that we think about, everyone, when you're thinking about your blood sugar are the fasting blood sugar, just like you said, when you wake up, what is your blood sugar looking like? But also what we call postprandial. That's just a long word that means what's your blood sugar after you eat. And we don't want to have that spiking. And those are the things that we try to balance with diabetics, whether they're on insulin or whether they're on pills. We try to make sure we balance the two. So measuring that is so important. So everyone, when you get to your doctor and you get what's called a hemoglobin A1C, that is just a measure of the amount of sugar on your red blood cells over a 3-month interval. It's a simple test. When that number is over 5.7, it's a possibility that you are getting towards a diabetes diagnosis or close to that insensitivity or resistance that we talked about. So we do, and we're very fortunate and blessed to have a piece of information that we could utilize to see where we should be going next and what we should do to adjust some things in our life.
We're talking with Dr. Ken Redcross, and you're based out of New York, right?
I am. It's interesting. I'm a concierge doc, so I make house calls or I go see people, but we do a lot of education like this. So I literally have patients all around the world where we talk this way for advice and direction and education and this is my kind of passion. I want all of you out there listening to be able to pick up the phone and get to your doctor just like this to answer some of these questions. But once again, be prepared. Go in there armed with a question. Have the top 3 things you'd like to have answered, in other words, so that it is a productive visit.
You are definitely a rare breed. Doctors don't make house calls anymore. I mean, that's really special. How did you even decide to do that?
It's funny, everyone. So I've been in practice over 20 years. Time flies when you're having fun, but I can tell you, I was very frustrated. I was frustrated with the healthcare system. I felt that I was pushing through patients. I couldn't get into the soul of the patient, as I like to say. And I decided I wanted to do something for myself and say, what if I came to people? Would people appreciate that? And so lo and behold, patients do appreciate that. And the ones that I'm fortunate enough to get to in the New York area, if not, it happens this way. It happens whether it's by Zoom or telephone, to where we can get those 4 things. I wrote a book called Bond, because if you can't tell, it's kind of my passion, the patient-doctor bond.
Yeah.
It was about trust, respect, empathy, and communication. And all 4 of those are necessary to have the perfect relationship. And so when we're talking about some of the confusion on TikTok or Dr. Google and these crazes, sometimes we have to just take a step back and say, all right, this isn't perfectly accurate, but what positivity can we take from this Ozempic challenge? And now it's that story of berberine, that once again, a plant-based ingredient that we probably wouldn't have been talking about should TikTok doc not bring this up to us. It's interesting as we talk about this, because when we're looking at TikTok and, a lot of docs are looking at it negatively, I like to stay as positive as possible, pull that information and say, what is something that we learned that we maybe wouldn't have learned before, TikTok doc came? And we would never have been talking about berberine in this case and how it can help support our blood sugar and get, more benefits of health that I like to always say are closer to the earth. So you have to have this relationship to your doctor, because believe me, or with your doctor, because believe me, there are TikTok challenges coming literally by the time we get off, probably another 100 that you're going to want to talk to your doctor about and get a little bit of insight.
It's so true. Social media is getting inundated with so many things about, whether it's miracle cures or suggestions for different things, and not even just diabetes, so many other things between television and social media. It's getting a little crazy.
No, it is. And so that's why, it's important to kind of sift through some of the ones that you think are like, oh, there was a water chugging challenge. You think, okay, well, doc, what problem can you have with that? Well, our body doesn't like a large amount of water in a short amount of time. It can lead to not only illness, but death in some cases. So to back up from that is to say, okay, we know we need hydration. We know we're all 60% water. It's important, but you have to talk to your doc, because what if you have hypertension or heart failure and that sort of thing? I don't want you getting that much water and fluid in at that time. We have to restrict sometimes. So once again, it's that educated, great question discussion to have with your doctor. Like, hey, I know water's good. I just heard about this chugging challenge. What do you think, doc? This good for me? Do you think this is something that I should ascribe to or bring into my kind of my health journey? But you have to, once again, have that connection in order to have that discussion.
You seem to be able to help people have a better and clearer view of the whole situation. That's a special trait. I'm just really excited to chat with you about it. Now, what about a website? Do you have any way that we can reach out to you and learn more about what you're doing and your research and your advice?
Absolutely. I would love that. So my website, everyone, is drkenredcross.com. And I've already mentioned a brand that I love, which is doctorspreferred.com, because when you think about the supplements and so forth, it's important. They're doctor created or doctor formulated and doctor vetted. So that's a big, big deal. So please reach out, ask questions. I love doing this sort of thing back and forth. Once again, this is my calling. So thank you.
It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Dr. Redcross. I always look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time.
Me too. Take care and have a wonderful day, everyone.
You've been listening to Food Talk for Health with Tonia King. Thanks for joining us. Eat well to be well.
Hope you'll check out our podcast for Food Talk for Health and subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts from.